All set.
You're going to demo the whistle, right? So thanks for coming out today. If this had been January, probably would have been no big deal, but being April, we're a little concerned that we would have a short turnout. So I really appreciate you guys coming out today. We're very fortunate today to have actually two events, one a short one and then one a longer one. We first of all have the esteemed privilege of having the noted author Don Dunlap with us today. Don is going to present a token to the Antrim Historical Society, and I'll let him fill in the gaps, but I appreciate him being here today and in your contribution already to the Historical Society, which you've already done. Not only Antrim's, but Concord, Manchester, a number of different places that you've contributed. We greatly appreciate that. So, Don, feel free. Again, if you haven't seen it, Don's an esteemed author. He's got his own book. It's at the library, and you can also purchase it.
I'm right here behind you. I'm right here.
She's right behind you.
Okay, this is a piece of furniture that my nephew made, Roger Dunlap. And when you sit down and you look at the detail that he has put into this, it's a pretty valuable piece. And the group of Dunlap people, I want to give it to the Antrim.
Could you tell us why you made it?
He made it for me.
Yeah? On what occasion was that?
Well, he worked with me in the cabinet making trade, so, and he was a fine young man.
Yes, great. Well, we greatly appreciate it. We'll take it, we'll honor it, and we'll make sure we display it. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to set this over here, and then I'll introduce and let you guys do what you want to do.
So just a short story on Roger. He worked with me for about 2 years in my shop, and he did very, very well. And then he opened up a shop on Route 9, a very nice shop, and went into business for himself. And I gave him my lumber list and my customer list. And at 46 years old, he dropped dead. So, he had a wonderful future in it. But,
And if I could add a quick story, Don's just a neighbor of mine. When I moved in, him and his wife took us over, as our other neighbors did, and really watched us over us quite well. And I was fascinated by the toolless designs of his highboys. If you've never seen them, you know, they're unbelievable. With the tiger maple, is it?
Yes, it is.
Just amazing. Yeah. So he finally worked up the courage to ask me to help him one day. Because I think some of the boys were busy and they weren't available, so I came over to the shop and he let me help him carry out one of the highboys in pieces. Well, I kind of touched the door just a little bit and he never asked me again, so, so it's probably the wise thing. So, thank you.
Thank you. So anyways, I took all the stuff back and started up with my business again in Marlow. But Roger, he would have had a wonderful future in cabinet making. He was such a fine young man. So, and you look at this afternoon at some of his work and the detail involved in it. It's really fabulous. And I guess that's all I got to say.
Well, we'll honor his memory, and we greatly appreciate it. We'll have it up at the Historical Society for anyone in town or out of town to see. His legacy will go along for a long time, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice seeing you. So our second event today, as you may know, and it's kind of an apropos day. 5 years ago, a lot of us know what we were doing when the events in Boston happened and the first responders did what they did. And we have a number of those people in this room today. And so today's honoring the history of the Antrim firefighters. We like to call them volunteer firefighters, but I hear that word is probably not the best used term for them. I read recently that 69% of firefighters in the nation are, in fact, volunteer fire department volunteers. So what they do is pretty important, particularly when you need them. Another quick story, I had the opportunity to utilized their services a couple years ago. I had a Toyota Camry that I kept saying I was going to drive into the ground. I was close to 200,000 miles. I wanted to hit that mark so I could send it into Toyota and say, hey, I'm one of you guys. Well, at about 188,000 miles, the engine blew right in front of the fire station almost. I didn't know it at the time, but there was a fire underneath the engine, and those guys and gals came in a heartbeat. Fortunately, the chief, I think, was just driving by right at that time, so he was able to. But the precision and just that what they did that day was amazed me, and I think they kind of took it as an opportunity for training too. So that was okay. But anyway, Chief, if you want to come on up. This is Chief Marshall Gale, for those who don't know him.
Thank you, Rick.
And I'll turn the table over to you.
Okay, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Marshall Gale. I am the current fire chief for Antrim Fire. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. It certainly doesn't seem like April showers are going to bring May flowers today, but we all know we live in New England. I certainly want to thank, we've got some members of the Antrim Fire Department, retired as well as current here today, and I certainly want to thank them for coming out. I'm pretty good about the history of the Antrim Fire Department, probably till about the mid-70s, and then after that, a little beyond my time, but I'd like to recognize Chief Mike Beauchamp sitting there. Chief Dick Edmunds. Dick Atkinson, longtime member as well. We have Todd Breyer here, many years of service. Todd's held the rank of lieutenant and captain over the course of his career. I'd like to thank retired firefighter Joe Smith for coming. We also have our current captain, Jason Breyer, here as well. And I'm making sure I didn't forget nobody. So we've got, I guess, a pretty varied display of stuff from Antrim Fire. Some of it current, some goes back. We've got some logs from the early 1800s. Antrim Fire first became official in 1850 when the town formed the precincts. Before that time, basically all we had was just some volunteers with a bucket brigade. But in the 1850s, they formed a precinct, and the selectmen at the time supported it. And they also purchased some equipment. I believe we had a horse-drawn hose wagon at that time. And like I said, that area is a little gray for me, so I'm hoping as some of the other members speak that they can fill in the blanks for me. This year will give me 42 years of service with Antrim Fire. Thank you. And the way I came about joining the fire department was in April of 1976, chumming around with a good friend of mine, Wayne Sherbin, who unfortunately is deceased now. He was a member of Antrim Fire at the North Branch Station, and we were just riding around, and there was a brush fire up at Lovren's Mills in Edwards' old blueberry patch. And that's back before there was electricity up there, and there was only the Edwards garage up top and another small camp. Back then the road was barely maintained, and certainly in the spring during mud season it wasn't very passable. We had an old Army deuce and a half all-wheel drive tanker that unfortunately we buried in the road, and we weren't able to access that fire, but only by foot. But that kind of gave me the bug, so I joined and been on ever since. Certainly got a great bunch of men and women on Antrim Fire and Ambulance, very dedicated and devoted. I put this in the town reports because a lot of people don't realize, as Rick said, we're a volunteer, but we're more classified as a call department in today's terminology. We're not at the station 24/7, but we are on call 24/7. And we do train to the same standards and certifications as a firefighter in the city of Manchester. So everybody's very well trained. We train once a month. And as Rick said, sometimes we get on-the-job training. So certainly call departments, historically, across the country, We're kind of struggling with our roster. Volunteerism isn't quite what it used to be, and certainly time constraints and just the everyday life of today with work and family, it is tough for people to take this on. And I think, you know, the young people now, you know, it's just kind of a different generation, so. But we're still doing well with, you know, our dedicated bunch. Sometimes daytime calls are a challenge, but so far we've been able to meet the town's needs and respond 24/7 for any of your emergency needs. So I'm going to hand it over to Chief Beauchamp if he wants to fill in some of the blanks. Obviously, I'm guessing after we probably speak a little bit, certainly take some time to look at the display, and all of us will be here to answer any questions you might have. Like I said, there's quite a bit of different stuff over the years, a lot of the old photographs, and how the equipment certainly, with technology and improvements, is certainly a lot better than the old days when we had basically, that was just a plastic helmet. We had black fire coats that weren't even Nomex. They weren't even really meant to go into a building or be an approach garment, and pretty much hip boots. So obviously fires today are a lot different because of synthetic materials and just everything that's in the homes. I mean, the old rule of thumb was a fire doubled every minute it burned. Now it's probably closer to 20 seconds. And certainly the gases that it gives off during the burning stage are a lot more toxic. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief Beauchamp.
He talks about the coats. I think we had 5 of them. They were all rolled up in a ball on the side of one of our engines. And when you go to put them on, they'd be wet anyway, but they didn't smell very good neither. Anyway, that's what we had, them and them helmets. When I got on in 1966, I don't even think we had an air pack. I think we might have had, okay, we had 2. And that's when we started raising our own money, starting to buy a lot of our own stuff. And Henry was our chief, and very good man to learn from. And as I said, I started in 1966. I can remember the first call I went on was at the Goodell Company. They had some type of fire. It was a pretty good fire in the back corner where the furnace and oil and stuff was all stored. And I can remember with a 2.5-inch line with someone else on the outside, putting the fire up and trying to put the fire out. We were down an engine that night because they decided to drive through the main basement and come out on the other side so they could have a truck on the other side. Well, it was so full of smoke that when they got the truck in there, they had no oxygen. Well, that truck sat in that station and in that Goodell Company all night long. You couldn't start it. Well, once the smoke went, it started right off. And they got it out. But that one was the first one I went on. We didn't have much medical at that time, and a few of us got into a little bit of it. But anyway, Henry, we bought our, I think, in 1974, we bought a real truck. And we got rid of the old Diamond D we had, which was a sweet piece of equipment. And we were carrying somewhere around 2,200 feet of 4-inch holes on it. And boy, that was name of the thing around. Every fire you went to was, they wanted that 4-inch line. So we went to a lot. I think we went to Francistown with it more than any of them. They used to have some pretty good ones in Francistown. But as the years went on through, you know, you come up the ranks, lieutenant, captain, deputy chief, and then I was finally asked to be chief in 1989 when Henry retired. And when I took it over, we still had a lot of vintage equipment other than the new engine that we had bought when we moved into the new station. And so we worked on it over the years, and we do have some very nice equipment up there now. I think we got, everything is still in A1 shape. That's one thing I'll say about the men on the fire department, they kept their equipment clean. Every time they come back after, in the winter time, it was all, they were all rinsed down, rinsed underneath. They really did a real good job on it. And we had a few fires. I think the two that I remember the most was when the fire station burned. The wind was blowing like hell, and it really amazed me how it took one block of wood and blew it right straight over West Street and them houses and landed right in through a window into the Edmunds hardware store. And I'm gonna tell you, it had to land in where, other than way upstairs. So one of the employees come over and asked me, they says, we can smell smoke in our room. And all I could say to myself was that must be going. So Neil and I walked over, Charlie and I. And we started up the stairs. We looked at one another and we said, oh shit. That attic was just about like a, you never saw so much fire roll in one spot as that attic was rolling. And well, we'd start all over again. We start swiping equipment from this fire to put over there, and we had towns come in. We had, I think, Jaffrey and Dublin, and all them towns were all, Peterborough, they were all over here. And I think they did a great job in stopping the fire at Edmunds, because I foresee that going right to the ground, but it didn't. And the other one was when the Ashford house burnt over here. I was just telling someone that Neil and I, Sharvie and I and Barry Frosch, we walked in there. It came in as a house fire, but yet there was a little bit of smoke. It was about it. And then when we got in, we got looking around. It was warm in there. And we were standing there talking, and all of a sudden I looked at Barry and I said, look at that. He looked at the door jambs, and the paint was blistering. So we started investigating. We let Hank know what was going on, and we went up and we took one of our poles that we had, and we poked the opening to the attic. And that attic here again was fully involved. That's where the fire went. And it went right straight down through the attic, all the way to the barn. We did say the barn, but that was about it that happened that night. I mean, it was hard. But from then on, we started very good. We were very proud of the fires we got to, and if there was a chance of saving the building, it was saved. I mean, one out on Pierce Lake Road, a nice big beautiful home. We got there and there wasn't a window that the flames weren't shooting out of. So, you know, you say, yeah, you kind of write that off. You would love to call the insurance company and say, look, at this is fully involved, it's going to go down, it's going to be a total loss, can I just let it go? But they don't let you do that. But anyway, that was I think one of the hottest ones we were due for a long time. We've had a few around lately. I was one of the fortunate ones that I never had a fatality in a fire. And Marshall, his first January, he took over. Of course, there had to be one, and it was on his shift, on his call. And I really felt bad for him, because we, you know, went through all them years without fatalities and stuff. But buying gear, our first real set of gear we were called the Yellow Cherries, because it was all yellow. Dick got it through a grant. And everybody teased us about, what's everybody wearing today? You know, same color we were wearing years ago. But they calling us the cherry birds, but we didn't really care. But we were safe. It was good gear. And from then on, we've been keeping up with the gear. We got a grant for all new gear, what, 12 years ago?
Yep.
So, and one of the stipulations in the grant, when you get that stuff, you've got to tell them how you're going to keep it up. And to keep it up, we said, you know, 3, maybe 4 set of gear a year. That's just about what we're doing now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And got a grant for new air packs. And I think he's working on another grant for some more new air packs. But we were fortunate in getting these grants. And everything was great. We had, as I said, one hell of a good department. We had a good response time. We were out and gone. When they come in the station, they didn't sit there and talk to one another. They ran in the station, they got dressed, and they discussed everything going to calls. We did all our discussing in the trucks. And they were waiting for me or Marshall or whoever was the officer on the scene that got there, you know, tell them what they wanted and how they wanted them to set up. And it was all, everything right now is all set up by radio before the truck even arrives, if the officer gets on the scene first. Everything's all set up for them. They just do what they want, and they go in and get the job done. In 1973, the funeral homes used to do a lot of the transportation for ambulances. And then the restrictions came in. You had to do this, you had to do that. So all of them decided no more. So Woodbury and came over and talked with Hank, and I think that one in Peterborough too, on Concord Street. They came over and they were going to no longer issue services through, so we had to take it ourselves. By then, Hillsborough had their first ambulance, and so we got talking it over, Hank, you know, kept saying, what are we going to do, what can we do to help? Well, we all got together, myself, Dick Edmunds, Dick Atkinson, his wife, Neil Sharvey and his wife, Jim Rhymes and his wife, Barry Frosch, Bill Hall, and there was a couple other. We all went together and we took the EMT course. And that was in '74. And we weren't planning getting an ambulance. We were just going to run a rescue. And we had an old ambulance that we were turning into a rescue, an old Cadillac. And Hillsborough had a new ambulance coming. And they came over and got talking with us and everything else. $2,500 we could have their old one, which was a nice ambulance. Went, talked with the selectmen, saw what we could do, and they okayed it. And so we bought it, and we started running it. And from then on, I guess you all know, from then on it's $2,500 for that one. The next new one we bought was in '79, and that cost $32,000. Then we got another one that cost $68,000. I think the last one was $210,000,
Yep.
$205,000. I mean, that's how these things rise. And our first year on the ambulance, we had 78 calls. And the following year, we went up 10. Well, ever since they've been going on, I think our highest year was 450, 460, something like that. And last year, they were almost 400 again. So, I mean, the ambulance is out a lot, and it takes a lot for the people to do. And they really need help. I kind of wish that, you know, people would take interest. And I know the state has screwed everything up. I mean, we had a beautiful system. And now the state has put so much on the people that go on that they're scared. They don't know how they're going to keep their classes up. But it's so easy. We have a fella come in every month, do our ed training, and no tests, no nothing. They just have to do a little typewriting, and you don't even have to send your stuff to the state anymore, just for your license for the ambulance. And but here again, when I decided one day that it took me a year to do it, but I was going to get through. I talked a lot with Marshall on it, and asked him if he was really wanted to be the chief, and he was anxious to be it. And I can remember one day we were up on a accident on Route 9, and I had yelled over to Marshall if he could do something. And Sarah looked at me and he said, you know, everybody was Marshall do this, Marshall do that. Hey, he's working his way up through. He's going to be giving the orders one of these days. And she looked at me and she said, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he was great. And they had some good people up there. And she's got good equipment up there. But anyway, I decided in 2015 I was going to be all through on being fire chief. I stayed on the fire department just more or less to help them during the day, you know, run pump and stuff. And that's all I can do today. If I start pushing stuff around, then I have to go, you know. But anyway, I'm still doing that, and I'm kind of thinking first of the year I'll be all through with that. Last year, my license ran out on the ambulance, and I said, that's it. So, and you know, I hate to say this, of all the years I run on the ambulance, and all the times that I left when my wife and I were going out someplace for supper or something, and went on the ambulance. And I remember one day we had, on the 31st of December, I think we had 8 calls. And one of them, Dick, had to go to Massachusetts with the patient for a transfer. And Dick and a couple of the other guys went. And we were swinging both ambulances at the same time. But from then on, I don't really miss the ambulance. Really, I don't. I really feel sorry for the people that right now, Marshall and Brenda and Sherry seem to be tied right into that front seat of that ambulance every call. And you know, we have the other girls and the other fellows that come in and do their part if they're in town, but right now everybody's working. I mean, as Marshall said, we need, you know, people, and it would be nice to see if we could get a hold of a few. But right now, I'm going to say that Marshall and Eric Phillips and Thomas Beaumont and captains Jay Hennessy and Mr. Breyer and you know, Jason. I was trying to. I was kept saying, kept had Josh on my mind. I didn't want to say it, but and then they got some good lieutenants. Barry Frosch, Gorman. How do you pronounce it? Cronin, and my daughter, and they're all there, and it's just like, I think you got 8 officers, and they're the 8 people that show up for all the fires. You know, I mean, you look at the roster and it's the top lines are all filled in, and 1 or 2 on the bottom going down through.
Usually the officers and firefighter Todd Breyer.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But anyway, I think they got a great squad, and they do good work, and my hat's off to them. Thank you.
Certainly during Chief Beauchamp's tenure as chief, certainly was a big driving force on the equipment upgrades and stuff. And a lot of that is why we're at today with some of the equipment we have. And certainly, as far as the ambulance, there was certainly many people that made that successful, but certainly over the years, I mean, I don't even want to guess how many calls Chief Beauchamp did, but certainly the town owes him quite a debt of gratitude, and I know he enjoyed doing it and helping the people, but he was a big part of you know, the success of Antrim Fire and Ambulance. Dick, would you like to say a few words?
Mike said it all.
Yeah, he kind of took all your limelight.
Yeah.
How about Dick Atkinson?
Oh, I'm sorry. I took Dick's
Or
good.
Dick Edmunds?
I think Mike covered it pretty well.
Yep, I think he did.
Well today.
Todd, would you? All right. Well, I've got somebody that certainly wants to talk, and that's Joe Smith. Joe was on the department for many years. Held the position as lieutenant. And I guess as far as anybody right now living today that knows the history of the Antrim Fire Department, I'm going to say is Joe Smith. So he's brought a lot of old newspaper clippings and pictures, as well as we're gonna pick his brain a little bit. So, Joe?
What are we talking about? First of all, I want to thank Marshall Gale for calling me a couple of weeks ago and asking me to come today. So, thank you, Marshall. I'll get back at you for this. I grew up here as a young fella, and it's kind of the woodwork here for many years. And I love history, and history was always a big thing that I was interested in. And when the fire station was down on the main street, it was pretty convenient to be able to go by the station, the old station down there, and guys would be out either washing their trucks or doing something to them. And so I got to know some of the older gentlemen, stayed on, went down there to get on the fire department when I turned 18. And one of the neat things about the old fire station is I'm kind of doing a little bit more approach to some of this stuff than what Marshall and Mike did. For me, growing up here, being part of the community meant a lot. And as I started thinking about how I could get on the fire station and get onto the fire department, one of the things that was interesting was that one of the really neat things when I finally did get on was, when I finally got on, one of the things that was kind of neat was a lot of the old timers, and this was something to do with Henry Cutter, that he was very instrumental. He liked to be in touch with past members and older gentlemen that weren't available to be working in the department anymore. And one of the things that he liked us to do, and we continued for a long time, was around Christmas time or Thanksgiving, we would put a basket of fruit together and go around to widows or firemen that were still alive and bring them a Christmas basket or a Thanksgiving basket. And to me, that was just more of, you know, you're not just going here to wash trucks, get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go to a chimney fire. It actually turned into, wow, this is really something. And one of the other things that was pretty neat too at that time was, in the winter time, the fire station wasn't locked. I mean, we never locked the door to the fire station. You couldn't do that today because someone couldn't take the fire trucks. But at the time, one of the reasons why the door wasn't locked was in the winter time, kids would skate on the pond out back of the fire station or back of Wayno's store. So one of the neat things was we left the door unlocked too, so that the kids could come in and get warm. They would change their skates by sitting on the run boards of the truck. And just those kind of neat things were kind of neat that that was very important to me, that I could see kids doing that. We never had anything stolen out of that station, ever, ever. All the years that the door was unlocked. And that in itself was saying something.